What happens when a man who has everything decides the one thing he doesn't need is the woman who helped him get it? Matthew Ryan, a billionaire titan of industry, thought his wife Bella was a relic of his past, a quiet shadow he had to shed to step into the blinding spotlight of global fame. He cast her aside for a younger, brighter star, leaving her with nothing but shattered memories and public humiliation. But he forgot one crucial detail. The quietest voices often carry the most powerful truths and the deepest passions. When scorned, can ignite a fire that will set the world ablaze. The silence in their penthouse apartment was a specific kind of quiet. It wasn't peaceful, it was expensive. It was the sound of triple-pane glass high above the New York City skyline, muffling the chaos of the world below into a distant, inconsequential hum. It was the sound of plush, custom-woven carpets absorbing every footstep. The sound of a home so vast that two people could exist within it for days without crossing paths. For Bella Hayes, this silence had become the soundtrack to her marriage. Her husband, Matthew Ryan, didn't deal in quiet. He was a man of noise, of explosive growth, of thunderous applause. His tech empire, Ryan Innovations, had devoured the market with the ferocity of a shark, making him a billionaire before his 35th birthday. He was the darling of financial news, the coveted speaker at global summits, the man whose face adorned the cover of Forbes and Wired with unnerving frequency. But at home, he was a ghost. A presence felt more in his absence than his company. Bella sat in her studio, a small, sun-drenched room Matthew had begrudgingly allowed her to convert. It was the one corner of the sprawling penthouse that felt like hers. Shelves of small, dark glass bottles lined the walls, each meticulously labeled: bergamot, vetiver, sandalwood, jasmine sambac, orris butter. This was her sanctuary, her forgotten passion. Before she was Mrs. Bella Ryan, she was Bella Hayes, a gifted perfumer, a nose with a rare talent for translating memories and emotions into scent. She had met Matthew when her small, artisanal brand was just beginning to get noticed. He had been captivated by her passion, her artistry. He'd told her she was a creator just like him. He'd also told her, not long after their wedding, that her little hobby was quaint, but not fitting for the wife of Matthew Ryan. Her time was better spent curating their image, hosting dinners for investors, and smiling placidly by his side on red carpets. For his love, for their future, she had agreed. She packed her vials away, letting her unique talent atrophy in the gilded cage of their life. The past year, however, had been different. The silence had grown colder, the distance wider. Matthew was no longer just a businessman. He was pursuing celebrity. His new obsession was building the Ryan brand, a personal empire of influence that transcended mere wealth. And the architect of that brand, it seemed, was Scarlett Monroe. Scarlett was everything Bella was not. She was a 24-year-old actress and social media influencer with millions of followers who hung on her every vapid word. She was loud, professionally beautiful, and her entire life was a performance for the camera. Matthew had collaborated with her on a charity campaign, and soon their collaboration was splashed across every gossip site and tabloid. Billionaire tech mogul Matthew Ryan and starlet Scarlett Monroe, more than just friends? The headlines screamed. Bella saw the pictures. Matthew looking more vibrant and alive than he had in years, laughing with Scarlett on a yacht in St. Bart's, their hands brushing at a gala in Los Angeles, their coincidental dinner at a private club in Paris. Each photo was a small, sharp cut to her heart. Tonight was the annual Ryan Innovations Foundation Gala, the crown jewel of their philanthropic efforts, and, more importantly to Matthew, a massive media event. Bella stood before the full-length mirror in their dressing room, a cavern of marble and polished chrome. She wore a deep emerald gown by a designer whose name she couldn't recall. It was beautiful, tasteful, and utterly forgettable, much like her role in Matthew's life. Matthew entered the room already in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. He didn't look at her, his attention fixed on his phone. "The car is waiting. Are you ready?" he asked, his tone clipped. "Almost," she said softly. "Matthew, can we talk?" He sighed, a sound of profound irritation. "Bella, we don't have time." The press will be there. We need to present a united front. A united front? The words tasted like ash. They're writing about you and her every single day. What kind of united front is that? He finally looked up from his phone, and his eyes were cold, devoid of the warmth she remembered from a lifetime ago. Scarlett is good for the brand. She has reach. She connects with a demographic we need to capture. It's business. It's humiliating, she whispered, the words catching in her throat. I'm your wife. And you've done a fine job of it, he said, his voice laced with condescension. You've been a great hostess. But the company is moving in a new direction. The brand is evolving. I am evolving. The implication hung in the air between them, heavy and suffocating. And you are not. The gala was a blur of flashing cameras, fake smiles, and hollow conversations. Bella played her part, a graceful automaton by his side. She watched him command the room, his charm a weapon he wielded with lethal precision. She saw him speak with Scarlett Monroe across the ballroom. Scarlett, draped in a scandalously red dress, laughed, tossing her blonde hair back and placing a hand on his arm. It was a gesture of ownership. The cameras flashed, capturing the moment, capturing Bella's pained expression in the background. Later that night, back in the silent penthouse, the confrontation she had dreaded finally arrived. It's not working anymore, Bella, Matthew said, loosening his bow tie as he stared at his own reflection in the dark glass of the window. What isn't working? She asked, though she already knew. Her heart was a cold, hard knot in her chest. This, us. He turned to face her, his expression not of sadness or regret, but of cold, hard pragmatism, like he was discontinuing a product line that no longer showed growth. I've filed for divorce. My lawyers will be in touch with yours tomorrow. The floor seemed to drop out from under her. You filed? Without even talking to me? Talking is inefficient. It leads to messy emotions, he said. This is a clean break. I'm being generous. The settlement will ensure you're comfortable. Comfortable? She choked out, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. I gave up my life for you, Matthew. My career. Everything. You chose this life, he countered, his voice rising in anger. You chose the penthouses, the private jets, the couture. Don't pretend you were a victim. You enjoyed the benefits. He took a step closer, his face a mask of cruel finality. But the benefits have expired. I need someone by my side who amplifies my brand, not someone who hides in the shadows. Scarlett understands that. She's a star. She makes me a star. The words struck her with the force of a physical blow. Hides in the shadows. He was taking the very quality he had demanded of her quiet support, her erasure of self, and turning it into her fatal flaw. My lawyer, Robert Bennett, has already prepared the papers, he continued, turning to leave the room. He advises you not to contest it. It would be unpleasant for you. He paused at the door, delivering his final, devastating verdict. The world wants youth, Bella. It wants fame. It wants excitement. It wants Scarlett Monroe. It doesn't want you. He walked out, leaving Bella alone in the vast, silent room. The expensive quiet pressed in on her. No longer a sound of luxury, but the sound of absolute soul-crushing emptiness. Outside, the city glittered, a universe of lights and dreams. But inside, her world had just gone completely dark. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in swift corporate cruelty. Matthew Ryan, who optimized every aspect of his life for ruthless efficiency, dismantled their 12-year marriage with the same impersonal precision he would use to shutter an underperforming division of his company. The first blow came from Robert Bennett, Matthew's lawyer. He was a man with a face like polished granite and a voice that could curdle milk. The divorce papers arrived via courier, a thick, intimidating stack of legalese. Bella was given 72 hours to vacate the penthouse. A non-disclosure agreement was stapled to the front, a gag order that would prevent her from ever speaking about their life together. The generous settlement Matthew had mentioned was a one-time payment that, after legal fees, was an insult, enough to keep her from being destitute, but nowhere near enough to reflect the years she had invested in his life and career. Every joint asset, every stock option, every piece of their shared history was locked down, claimed as a non-marital asset of Ryan Innovations. He was erasing her not just from his future, but from his past as well. The second blow was the media. Matthew's PR team, a well-oiled machine of spin and narrative control, released a statement before Bella had even finished reading the first page of the divorce filing. Matthew Ryan and Bella Hayes have amicably decided to part ways, the statement read. They wish each other the best in their future endeavors. Mr. Ryan hopes the media will respect their privacy during this difficult time. Within an hour, the amicable narrative was torpedoed. Sources close to the couple began leaking stories to gossip blogs. Bella was painted as a recluse, a socialite who had grown uncomfortable with Matthew's philanthropic ambitions, a woman who couldn't keep up with his dynamic, world-changing pace. Then came the pictures. Matthew and Scarlett, photographed leaving a renowned restaurant, looking somber but strong. The unspoken story was clear. Scarlett was the supportive friend, helping the visionary billionaire through his painful, necessary breakup. Bella felt like she was suffocating. The penthouse, once her home, now felt like a prison. The staff, who had always been polite, now looked at her with a mixture of pity and professional distance. They were Matthew's employees, after all. She was just a temporary resident whose lease had expired. She packed her things in a daze. What did she even own? Most of the clothes were bought for galas she never wanted to attend. The jewelry was gifted for anniversaries Matthew barely remembered. It all felt like a costume for a role she was no longer playing. In the end, she packed her personal effects, some books, and the contents of her studio. The small glass vials felt like the only real things she possessed. Her oldest friend, Chloe Vance, arrived like a force of nature, her red hair a vibrant slash against the muted, tasteful beige of the apartment lobby. Chloe was a marketing strategist, sharp, witty, and fiercely loyal. She had never liked Matthew, calling him a beautifully packaged void from the very beginning. "Let's go," Chloe said, her voice firm as she took a suitcase from Bella's numb fingers. "We're not spending another second in this mausoleum." Chloe drove her to a small pre-war apartment in the West Village that she kept as an investment property. It was a world away from the sterile perfection of the penthouse. The rooms were small, the floors creaked, and instead of a skyline view, the windows looked out onto a brick wall and a tangle of fire escapes. To Bella, it felt like a haven. The days that followed were a gray, formless blur. Bella would sit by the window for hours, watching the world go on without her. The news cycle moved on, but the damage was done. When she ventured out for groceries, she felt the stares. She saw the tabloids at the checkout counter, her face next to Scarlett's, a before and after of Matthew's life. The public humiliation was a constant, heavy cloak. Matthew had not just left her, he had branded her as obsolete. Chloe tried to coax her out of her stupor. She brought over wine and takeout, trying to fill the quiet apartment with laughter and gossip. But Bella's grief was a black hole that swallowed all light. "You can't let him win, Ames," Chloe said one evening, frustration coloring her tone. "You can't just disappear." "He already won," Bella said, her voice a monotone. "He has everything. The company, the fame, the girl. What do I have?" "You have you," Chloe insisted, exasperated. "The person you were before you met him. The artist, the creator. What happened to her?" Bella just shook her head, pulling a blanket tighter around her shoulders. The woman Chloe was talking about felt like a stranger from another life. One rainy Tuesday, while unpacking the last of her boxes, her fingers brushed against the cool, smooth surface of a small, unlabeled bottle. It was a dark, amber liquid. She uncorked it, and the scent filled the small room. It was a complex, melancholic fragrance. Notes of petrichor, the smell of rain on dry earth, old books, a hint of smoky lapsang souchong tea, and a faint, lingering heart of night-blooming jasmine. It was the first perfume she had ever created for Matthew. She had called it Sanctuary. It was meant to capture the feeling of the quiet, rainy afternoon in a dusty bookstore where they first met, a time when their love felt like a refuge from the world. He had loved it. He had said it smelled like home. He hadn't worn it in years. A tear slid down her cheek, then another. The scent wasn't just a memory. It was a ghost. It was everything she had lost, everything that had been twisted and broken. She held the bottle in her hand, the grief welling up inside her. a tidal wave she had been holding back for weeks. And then a different feeling began to surface, pushing through the pain. It was a spark of something hot and sharp. It was anger. He had taken her life, her love, her confidence. He had tried to take her past. But this bottle, this scent, this memory was hers. Her talent was hers. He hadn't created it, and he couldn't take it away. She walked over to the box containing her old equipment, the beakers, the pipettes, the scales, the precious collection of essential oils and absolutes she had so carefully curated over the years. Her hands, which had been trembling for weeks, were suddenly steady. She set up a small workstation on the cramped kitchen table. She didn't know what she was going to make. She wasn't thinking about a product or a brand. She was simply trying to answer Chloe's question. What happened to her? She began to mix, to blend, to create. She worked not from formulas, but from pure, raw emotion. She took the melancholy of sanctuary and added a sharp, defiant note of bitter orange. She layered in the resilience of cedarwood and the stubborn strength of vetiver. At its heart, she placed a core of tuberose, a flower known for its powerful, intoxicating, and almost dangerously seductive scent. She worked through the night, the city lights painting patterns on the walls of her small apartment. For the first time in months, the silence wasn't empty. It was filled with purpose. As the sun began to rise, casting a pale gray light over the city, she held a small test strip to her nose. The fragrance was breathtaking. It was a story in a bottle. It smelled of heartbreak, yes, but it also smelled of survival. It was the scent of a woman rising from the ashes. She didn't have a name for it yet, but she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that this was not an ending. It was a beginning. The small apartment was transformed. What was once a place of refuge from grief became a laboratory of creation. The air, once heavy with sorrow, was now thick with the complex alchemy of scent. Bella worked with a feverish intensity she hadn't felt in over a decade. The act of creating was an act of reclaiming herself, molecule by molecule. When Chloe came over a few days later, she stopped dead in the doorway, her nose twitching. "What is that smell?" she asked, her eyes wide. "It's incredible." Bella, looking more alive than she had in months, with a smudge of resin on her cheek and her hair tied up in a messy bun, simply held out a small, unmarked vial. Chloe took it, dabbed a tiny drop on her wrist, and inhaled. Her professional mask dissolved into one of pure awe. The fragrance was a paradox. It was elegant, yet fierce, vulnerable, yet incredibly strong. It was a scent that didn't just sit on the skin, it told a story. "Ames, what is this?" Chloe whispered. "I don't know," Bella admitted. "It's just what I'm feeling." Chloe's marketing brain fired up, pistons churning at full speed. This isn't just a feeling. This is a product, a brand, a goddamn empire in a bottle. People will pay a fortune to feel like this smells. Bella laughed, a real, genuine laugh that startled them both. "Chloe, it's just something I made on my kitchen table." "Genius is often made on kitchen tables," Chloe shot back, her excitement palpable. "We have to do something with this. We have to sell it." The idea was terrifying. Selling her creation meant putting her most vulnerable feelings out into the world for judgment. It meant stepping out of the shadows Matthew had relegated her to. But the fear was overshadowed by a flicker of defiance. Matthew had told the world she was nothing without him. What if she could prove him wrong? "Okay," Bella said, the words small but firm. "How?" Chloe's plan was precise and strategic. They wouldn't and couldn't compete with the massive, celebrity-endorsed perfume conglomerates. They had to be different. Their brand would be about authenticity, mystery, and story. First, the name. "We need something that tells the story," Chloe mused, pacing the small living room. "Rebirth, resilience, rising from the ashes. Phoenix," Bella said softly. Chloe stopped pacing. "Phoenix, it's perfect." Next, the brand name. Bella refused to use the name Ryan. She wanted nothing to do with him. She was Bella Hayes. "Maison Hayes," Chloe declared. "House of Hayes. It's classic, elegant, and it's all you." They pooled their resources. Bella used a significant portion of her meager settlement, a terrifying gamble, while Chloe invested her own savings. They sourced high-quality bottles from a small supplier in France, simple, heavy glass that felt substantial in the hand, with a minimalist label. They built a simple, elegant website, with Chloe writing copy that was evocative and mysterious, telling the story of the scent without ever mentioning Bella's personal history. Phoenix by Maison Hayes, the website read, a fragrance for the woman who has walked through fire and emerged not burned but forged. They decided against any traditional advertising. Their strategy was to be discovered. Chloe curated a list of 50 influential people, not the mega celebrities like Scarlett Monroe, but niche fashion bloggers, respected beauty editors, artists, and writers known for their taste and authenticity. Each of the 50 received a beautifully packaged bottle of Phoenix with a simple, handwritten note. We thought this might speak to you. They launched the website with an initial batch of just 500 bottles. For the first week, there was nothing but a terrifying silence, broken only by the sound of Bella's dwindling bank account. She started to panic, convinced she had made a terrible, foolish mistake. Just wait, Chloe insisted, though Bella could see the worry in her friend's eyes. Good things take time. The first sign came from a small, highly respected fashion blogger based in London named Genevieve Croft. She posted a photo of the bottle on her Instagram. I don't know what Maison Hayes is, her caption read, but this perfume is a revelation. It smells like a novel I never want to end. Utterly intoxicating. Her post was shared. A few orders trickled in. Then a week later, the online magazine Verve, known for its sharp, intelligent beauty journalism, published an article titled, The Mysterious Scent Taking Over Our Office. The editor, a notoriously hard-to-please woman named Isabel Chen, had been one of the 50 recipients. She wrote a glowing, detailed review of Phoenix, praising its complexity and emotional depth. In a world of saccharine celebrity scents, she wrote, Phoenix is a shot of dark, beautiful poetry. The trickle of orders became a stream. Then the stream became a river. The first batch of 500 bottles sold out in 3 days. Bella and Chloe were up all night, packing boxes in the tiny apartment, the scent of Phoenix clinging to the cardboard. They ordered another batch of 1,000 bottles, praying it wasn't a fluke. It sold out in a day. Meanwhile, Matthew Ryan was living his new high-profile life. He and Scarlett were the industry's new power couple, their every move documented for public consumption. He was in the process of negotiating the deal of a lifetime, a merger with Beaumont Holdings, a venerable old-money European luxury conglomerate. Beaumont owned high-end fashion houses, watchmakers, and vineyards. They were looking to modernize, to acquire a dynamic tech firm to integrate luxury with technology. Ryan Innovations was Matthew's ticket to the highest echelons of the global elite, a world of legacy wealth and power far beyond his new money status. The deal was everything to him. He was so consumed by his ascent that he paid no attention to the small, rising whispers in the world of niche luxury. He would have never heard of a tiny online perfumery called Maison Hayes. He had forgotten that Bella even had a little hobby. He had erased her so completely from his life that, in his mind, she had simply ceased to exist in any meaningful way. Back in the West Village, Bella was anything but non-existent. She was exhausted, overwhelmed, but buzzing with an energy she had thought was lost forever. They had to rent a small studio space in Brooklyn to handle the bottling and shipping. They hired their first 2 employees. Maison Hayes was becoming a real business. The true tipping point came from an unexpected source. A late-night talk show host was interviewing Anya Sharma, one of the world's most beloved and respected actresses, known for her talent, intelligence, and privacy. You always look so incredible, and I have to ask, the host said, leaning forward conspiratorially, what is that scent you're wearing? It's amazing. Anya Sharma smiled, a rare, genuine smile. It's called Phoenix, she said, her voice clear and caring to the millions of people watching. I have no idea who makes it. It just appeared one day. But it smells like strength. I think every woman should have it. The next morning, the Maison Hayes website crashed from the traffic. When they finally got it back online, they had over 50,000 orders on backorder. Bella stood in her new bustling studio, the phone ringing off the hook, emails flooding their inbox. She was no longer Matthew Ryan's forgotten wife. She was the mysterious founder of the most talked-about fragrance in the world. She had created a scent born from her pain, and that pain was resonating with thousands of women. She had taken her ashes and built a bonfire, and the world was just beginning to see the glow. The Anya Sharma mention was not just a spark, it was a detonation. Phoenix became more than a perfume. It became a phenomenon. It was the must-have item whispered about in boardrooms and green rooms, the secret weapon of women who were tired of smelling like focus-grouped floral arrangements. The waitlist grew to over 100,000 people. The mystery surrounding its creator, the enigmatic A. Hayes of Maison Hayes, only fueled the fire. Every major fashion magazine and newspaper was trying to land an interview, but Chloe, acting as a fierce gatekeeper, turned them all down. "The longer we hold back, the more they'll want you," Chloe explained, navigating the chaos of their now crowded Brooklyn studio. "Right now, you're a legend. Let's keep it that way for a bit longer." Bella was content to stay behind the scenes. The work was all-consuming. She was no longer just a creator. She was a business owner. She spent her days sourcing the highest quality raw materials, ensuring every batch of Phoenix met her exacting standards, and her nights were spent sketching out ideas for new scents, her creativity now a raging river. The small apartment in the West Village, once a symbol of her downfall, was now her quiet refuge after a long day of building her own empire. The grief for her old life hadn't vanished entirely, but it had been transformed. It was no longer a weight that held her down, but the bedrock upon which she was building something new and strong. Matthew Ryan, meanwhile, was soaring in his own stratosphere. The negotiations with Beaumont Holdings were reaching their final, critical stages. The CEO, a formidable and deeply respected man named Alistair Beaumont, was flying to New York to finalize the terms. This merger would cement Matthew's legacy, transforming him from a tech bro billionaire into a global luxury titan. He and Scarlett were more visible than ever, a carefully curated spectacle of success and modern love. They were photographed at art auctions, charity events, and on the front row of Paris Fashion Week. Scarlett, basking in the glow of Matthew's wealth and power, loved the attention. She also loved the perks. One afternoon, while shopping with a coterie of friends on Madison Avenue, she overheard two impeccably dressed women talking at a cosmetics counter. "I finally got off the wait list," one of them whispered, holding up her phone to show the other an order confirmation. "Phoenix, it's supposed to be life-changing." "Oh, I'm dying to try it," the other replied. "Apparently no one knows who makes it. It's all very mysterious." Scarlett's interest was piqued. A life-changing, mysterious perfume that everyone was talking about? She had to have it. She considered it a personal failing that she hadn't heard of it first. That evening in the penthouse that was once Bella's home, Scarlett pouted at Matthew. "There's this new perfume, Phoenix. Everyone is obsessed with it, but it's impossible to get. Can't you get it for me? You're Matthew Ryan." Matthew, distracted by a complex spreadsheet detailing the financial projections of the merger, barely looked up. "Phoenix? Never heard of it. Just buy whatever you want, darling." "You don't get it," Scarlett whined. "You can't just buy it. That's the point. It's exclusive." Annoyed, Matthew finally turned his attention to her. The fastest way to end this conversation was to solve the problem. He called his executive assistant, a ruthlessly efficient woman named Diana. "Diana, there's a perfume called Phoenix. My fiancé wants it. Get it. I don't care what it costs," he commanded, then hung up. To him, the problem was solved. 2 days later, Diana reported back, her voice tight with a rare note of failure. "Sir, I'm sorry. I can't get it. I've tried every contact I have. The company is called Maison Hayes. They're completely sold out. The wait list is closed, and they aren't responding to any inquiries, not even from Vogue or the New York Times. They appear to be unbuyable." Matthew was stunned into silence. In his world, everything was buyable. Everything had a price. Unbuyable? That's ridiculous. Who are these people? "That's the other issue, sir," Diana said. "No one is certain. The company is registered to an A. Hayes. There's no press, no social media, no founder story. It's a ghost." The name A. Hayes sent a faint, dissonant chime through the back of his mind, but he dismissed it instantly. It was a common name. It couldn't possibly be her. The Bella he knew was a quiet, unassuming woman who had a little hobby. She wasn't capable of creating a global phenomenon. It was an impossibility, a statistical absurdity. He filed the name away as an irrelevant coincidence. But the seed of an idea was planted, not about Bella, but about the brand itself. Maison Hayes represented exactly the kind of authentic, new luxury buzz that Beaumont Holdings was desperate to capture. If he could somehow acquire this phantom company and present it to Alistair Beaumont as part of the merger, a small, strategic, tuck-in acquisition, it would be a masterstroke. It would prove he had his finger on the pulse of the culture, that he understood the new landscape of luxury. "Diana," he said, his voice now sharp with purpose. "Forget about getting a bottle. Get me a meeting. Find this A. Hayes. I want to buy her company." The chase was on. Matthew's team of corporate sharks, accustomed to hostile takeovers and aggressive negotiations, were deployed to hunt down the mysterious founder of Maison Hayes. They hit a brick wall at every turn. The company was privately held. Its legal address was a P.O. box. All communications were routed through a single unhelpful email address, managed by Chloe. Chloe read Matthew's inquiries with a wicked grin. The offers started coming in. First, a polite feeler from a junior M&A associate at Ryan Innovations. Then a more aggressive offer from his head of corporate development. Finally, an email from Matthew himself, a blend of arrogant charm and undisguised power. "He wants to buy us," and Chloe said, showing the email to Bella as they sat in their studio, now fragrant with the experimental notes of a new scent based on green tea and rain-soaked stone. Bella felt a jolt of ice in her veins. Matthew, he was hunting her, and he didn't even know it. The irony was staggering. The woman he had discarded as worthless was now the owner of the asset he desperately coveted. "What do we do?" Bella asked, her voice trembling slightly. Chloe's eyes gleamed. "We let him sweat, and we prepare for the next move, because he's not going to give up." The pressure was mounting from another direction, too. The demand for Phoenix was so overwhelming that they couldn't possibly scale to meet it on their own. They were receiving offers from venture capitalists, private equity firms, and major cosmetics corporations daily. They were at a crossroads. Remain a small niche brand, or find a partner who could help them grow without sacrificing their soul. It was during this whirlwind that an email arrived that was different from all the others. It wasn't from a tech company or a soulless conglomerate. It was from the office of Alistair Beaumont, the CEO of Beaumont Holdings. He wasn't sending a subordinate. He was requesting a personal meeting with A. Hayes. He wrote of his admiration for the brand's integrity and artistry, comparing it to the founding principles of his own company's legendary fashion houses. "This is it, Ames," Chloe said, her voice hushed with reverence. "This is the one. Beaumont is old-world elegance. They're about legacy, not just profit. They'll understand what you're doing." A meeting was arranged. Bella, terrified but determined, prepared to step into the light. She would be meeting the very man Matthew was trying to impress, the man who held the key to his ultimate ambition. The game was about to change. The whispers were about to become a roar, and the storm was heading directly for Matthew Ryan. He was so busy looking up at the sky, dreaming of his glorious future, that he never thought to look down at the ground that was about to give way beneath his feet. The headquarters of Beaumont Holdings in North America was a hushed tower of steel and glass on Park Avenue, a world that felt both alien and uncomfortably familiar to Bella. It had the same scent of immense wealth as her old life, but here it felt different, less like a flashy, frantic scramble for attention, and more like an assured, inherited power that had no need to shout. Bella clutched her leather portfolio, her knuckles white. Chloe, dressed in a power suit that was a vibrant shade of magenta, gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "You've got this," she whispered. "You're not here to ask for anything. They asked for you." They were escorted to the top floor, to a corner office with a view that seemed to encompass all of Manhattan. Alistair Beaumont rose from behind a large mahogany desk to greet them. He was in his late 60s, with a mane of silver hair, kind, intelligent eyes, and a suit that was clearly bespoke but worn with the comfortable ease of old pajamas. He was the antithesis of Matthew. Where Matthew was slick, Beaumont was substantive. Where Matthew projected power, Beaumont simply possessed it. "Ms. Hayes," he said, his voice a warm baritone with a faint British accent. He shook her hand, his grip firm and respectful. It is an honor to finally meet the artist behind the masterpiece. He gestured to a small, elegant bottle of Phoenix sitting on his desk. My wife has declared it a work of genius, and I have learned over 40 years not to argue with her judgment. Bella felt a blush rise to her cheeks. Mr. Beaumont, thank you for meeting with us. The meeting was unlike any business pitch she could have imagined. Mr. Beaumont didn't ask about profit margins or growth projections. He asked about her inspiration. He asked about the specific grade of jasmine she used and why she chose vetiver as an anchor. He listened, truly listened, as she spoke about her philosophy of scent as a form of storytelling. He saw her not as a business asset, but as a fellow creator. What you have created with Maison Hayes, he said after nearly an hour of conversation, is a brand built on authenticity. That is the rarest and most valuable commodity in the modern luxury market. The world is drowning in celebrity endorsements and mass-produced mediocrity. You have offered them something real. He then laid out his proposition, and it was far beyond anything Bella and Chloe had ever considered. He didn't just want to invest in Maison Hayes or acquire it. He wanted to make Maison Hayes the cornerstone of a revitalized Beaumont Parfums division. He wanted to give Bella her own state-of-the-art laboratory, access to the rarest ingredients in the world, and complete creative control. We provide the resources, the scale, the global distribution, he explained, leaning forward, his eyes earnest. You provide the vision. You would be the president and chief creative officer of the entire division. Bella was speechless. This wasn't just an offer to buy her company. It was an invitation to take over an empire. There was one more component to his offer. To launch this new era for Beaumont Parfum, he said, we need to tell the world a new story, and we believe you should be the face of that story. We want to build the entire global launch campaign around you. The creator, the woman behind the scent. The idea sent a wave of panic through her. To be the face? To put herself on display for the world that had watched her be so cruelly and publicly discarded? It felt like standing naked in Times Square. Chloe, sensing her hesitation, spoke up. Mr. Beaumont, the anonymity of the founder has been a key part of our brand success. And it was a brilliant strategy for your launch, Beaumont agreed, nodding. But to reach the next level, to become a true legacy, the story must be told. We live in an age that craves connection. People don't just buy products, they buy into the stories and values of the people who make them. Ms. Hayes' story, one of resilience, of artistry, of quiet strength, is 1,000 times more powerful than that of any actress we could hire. Bella looked out the window at the city below. Matthew had told her the world didn't want her. He had cast her into the shadows, confident she would fade away. Now this man, a titan of the very world Matthew so desperately wanted to conquer, was offering her the ultimate spotlight, not as a wife, not as an accessory, but as herself. It was a terrifying, exhilarating prospect. It was justice. I have one condition, Bella said, her voice clear and steady, surprising even herself. Anything, Beaumont replied. The campaign, the story, it will be on my terms. It will be truthful. Alistair Beaumont smiled, a genuine, warm smile. Ms. Hayes, I would expect nothing less. They left the building in a daze, the signed offer of intent tucked safely in Bella's portfolio. As they stood on the sidewalk, blinking in the afternoon sun, a black town car pulled up to the curb. Matthew Ryan, looking impeccably polished and confident, stepped out. He was on his way into the same building for his own final meeting with Beaumont. He saw Bella immediately. His confident stride faltered for a microsecond. A flicker of confusion, then annoyance crossed his face. What was she doing here? He probably assumed she was a low-level employee at one of the building's many firms, or perhaps meeting with a divorce lawyer. He composed himself instantly, his face settling into a mask of polite indifference. He gave her a curt, dismissive nod as he passed, a gesture one might give a stranger they vaguely recognized. He didn't even see Chloe standing beside her. He walked through the revolving doors and disappeared into the lobby, striding toward his destiny, utterly oblivious that his past had just been there to seal his fate. Bella watched him go, and for the first time she felt nothing. No pain, no anger, not even a flicker of satisfaction. Just a profound, quiet sense of peace. He was a ghost from another life, a man on a collision course with a truth he was completely unprepared for. "Well," Chloe said, breaking the silence with a wry smile, "this is going to be fun." The next 2 months were a whirlwind of focused, creative energy. Bella moved into a new world, the world of Beaumont Holdings. She was given a stunning, light-filled laboratory in Paris, a perfumer's dream, where she began work on 2 new scents to launch alongside Phoenix. She worked with the world's top bottle designers, packaging experts, and marketing teams. They all deferred to her vision. Alistair Beaumont had made it clear. Bella Hayes was the new heart of Beaumont Parfums. The centerpiece of the entire project was the global launch campaign, titled simply L'Auteur, the author. Its concept was revolutionary in its simplicity. There would be no models, no actresses, no distracting scenery. The entire campaign, from print ads in Vogue to massive digital billboards in the world's major cities, would feature a single, powerful portrait of Bella. She had been nervous about the photo shoot, but the famed photographer, a woman known for her intimate and soulful portraits, put her at ease. She didn't ask Bella to smile or pose. She simply asked her to think about her journey. The resulting photograph was breathtaking. It was Bella, looking directly at the camera. Her expression wasn't one of overt happiness or seductive allure. It was an expression of quiet confidence, of hard-won wisdom, of a woman who knew exactly who she was. In her hands, she held a single, perfect tuberose flower. The only text on the ad was the Beaumont logo, and one word, Bella. While Bella was building her future, Matthew was busy celebrating his. The deal with Beaumont Holdings was all but finalized. The press was fawning over him, hailing him as a visionary who was seamlessly blending technology and luxury. He and Scarlett gave a high-profile interview to a major magazine, posing for photos in their penthouse. The article was titled "The Ryan Age, A New Empire of Style and Innovation." In it, Matthew spoke grandly about legacy and authenticity, using the very words he'd heard were favored by Alistair Beaumont. He felt untouchable, on the cusp of his greatest triumph. His final meeting to sign the papers was scheduled for the day after the new, mysterious Beaumont Parfums campaign was set to launch globally. He had heard whispers that Beaumont was making a big move in the fragrance space, and he planned to congratulate Alistair on it, a show of partnership and shared vision. The night before the launch, demolition and construction crews worked in cities across the globe. In Times Square, a massive digital billboard that had previously advertised a blockbuster movie was being reprogrammed. On the Champs-Élysées in Paris, workers were installing a new canvas over a luxury watch ad. In Shibuya Crossing in Tokyo and Piccadilly Circus in London, the same preparations were being made. Matthew Ryan woke up on the morning of his signing day, feeling like the king of the world. He put on his most expensive suit, a custom piece from a Savile Row tailor. He drank his espresso while scanning the financial news, his own face staring back at him from an article praising the impending merger. His limousine crawled through the dense morning traffic on its way to the Beaumont building on Park Avenue. He was impatient, drumming his fingers on his leather briefcase. As the car was stopped at a light, he glanced idly out the window toward Times Square, a few blocks away. His eyes were drawn to the largest digital billboard, the one that dominated the entire intersection. And then his world stopped. It was her face, Bella. Not the timid, accommodating Bella he remembered, but a woman he didn't recognize. She was stunning, powerful, her gaze seeming to cut through the city's chaos and look directly at him. Her face was 50 feet high, an icon of serene confidence. And at the bottom, the Beaumont logo, and that single word, Bella. He blinked, thinking it was a hallucination, a trick of the light, but it was still there. Then he saw it on another screen. And another. His phone buzzed. It was a text from a colleague in London. "Did you see the new Beaumont campaign in Piccadilly? The woman, she looks familiar?" Another buzz. A friend in Paris. "Who is this Bella? Her face is plastered all over the Champs-Élysées." A cold, sickening dread began to crawl up his spine. Hayes. Maison Hayes. Bella Hayes. It couldn't be. It was impossible. He had thrown her away. She was nothing. How could she be everywhere? How could she be connected to Beaumont? He stumbled out of the car in a daze and walked into the Beaumont lobby. The large video wall behind the reception desk, which usually displayed the Beaumont corporate logo, was showing the same image. Her face, her eyes, they seemed to follow him, accusing him. He took the elevator up to the top floor, his heart hammering against his ribs. The confidence he had felt an hour ago had evaporated, replaced by a frantic, clawing panic. This had to be some kind of mistake, some bizarre, cosmic joke. He was shown into the boardroom. Alistair Beaumont was already there, along with his team of lawyers. "Matthew, good morning," Alistair said, his tone perfectly pleasant, though his eyes held a cool, appraising look. "Big day." "Alistair," Matthew said, his voice hoarse, "your new campaign. The face." "Ah, yes, striking, isn't she?" Beaumont said with a small smile. "That's Bella. She's the new president and chief creative officer of our entire fragrance division. A true artist. We've acquired her company, Maison Hayes, and are building the future of Beaumont Parfums around her vision." The room tilted. The air grew thin. Matthew stared at Alistair, his mind struggling to process the information. The company he had been trying to buy, the authentic brand he had wanted to use as a trophy to impress Beaumont, was founded by his ex-wife. The woman he had called obsolete was now a key executive in the very company he was about to merge with. He had been played. No, that wasn't right. He hadn't even been a player in this game. He had been so arrogant, so consumed by his own ambition, that he had never even seen the board. Alistair Beaumont gestured to the chair opposite him. "Shall we begin? There are just a few final details to discuss before we sign." Matthew sank into the chair, his mind a maelstrom of confusion, humiliation, and white-hot fury. He looked at the contracts laid out on the polished table, the culmination of his life's work. Then he looked at Alistair Beaumont, whose polite smile did nothing to hide the glint of steel in his eyes. He realized with a dawning, soul-crushing horror that this was not a coronation. It was an execution. The boardroom felt like a vacuum, sucking all the air from Matthew Ryan's lungs. Alistair Beaumont gestured to a chair, his expression unreadable. The contracts lay on the table between them, a testament to a future that was evaporating before Matthew's eyes. "Matthew, let's be direct," Alistair began, his voice calm but sharp as glass. "We've been following the launch of our new campaign with great interest. The public response to Bella has been extraordinary. It's a story of authenticity, resilience, and artistry. That is now the story of Beaumont." He paused, his gaze pinning Matthew in his seat. "Your story, as portrayed in the media, much of it by your own design, is one of ruthless ambition and public scandal. The two narratives are not compatible. In fact, they are at war with one another." Matthew felt a cold fury rise within him. "What are you implying?" "I am stating a fact," Alistair replied, his tone hardening. "We are acquiring Ryan Innovations for its technology and its assets, which are excellent. However, the Ryan brand, which we had assigned significant value to, has become a liability overnight. Your name, your leadership, it's toxic to the brand we are now building." He pushed a single revised sheet of paper across the table. "These are our new terms. We purchased the assets at the agreed-upon price. The merger is off. Ryan Innovations will be absorbed, and you will have no ongoing role. You will be paid handsomely, of course, but your time as a leader in this industry is over." It was an execution, a complete and total erasure from the future he had been promised. "This is her," Matthew snarled, slamming his hand on the table. "Bella did this. This is her pathetic revenge." Alistair Beaumont leaned back, a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. "Revenge? Mr. Ryan, you flatter yourself. This is not personal. It is simply brand management. Bella has conducted herself with nothing but grace and professionalism. She has been focused on creating, while you have been focused on posturing. We are simply choosing the more valuable asset. Her story sells. Yours, it turns out, does not." Matthew was left speechless, choked by the brutal, undeniable logic. He had made himself a villain in a story where the world was now rooting for the heroine. Before he could even process the humiliation, his world began to publicly unravel. As he left the Beaumont building, his phone lit up with news alerts. Beaumont Holdings acquires Ryan assets in shock restructuring, CEO Matthew Ryan to exit. The narrative he had so carefully controlled had been hijacked. The media, smelling blood, turned on him instantly, recasting him from a visionary into an arrogant fool who had underestimated the woman he cast aside. By the time his car reached his penthouse, the next blow landed. A message from his publicist with a link to a statement. Scarlett Monroe and Matthew Ryan have amicably ended their engagement. Scarlett wishes him well and will be focusing on her career. She had abandoned the sinking ship without a second thought, severing her brand from his toxic name. He walked into the silent apartment, the expensive quiet now feeling like a tomb. The city lights glittered outside, indifferent to his ruin. He switched on the television, and there she was, Bella. She was giving her first televised interview, looking radiant and serene. She spoke with passion about her craft, about translating emotion into scent. She never mentioned his name. She didn't have to. The interviewer finally asked, "Your signature fragrance, Phoenix, is about rising from the ashes. What does that mean to you?" Bella smiled, a calm, knowing expression that seemed to pierce through the screen. "It means that sometimes your world has to burn down for you to realize you were living in the wrong house. It's about understanding that your greatest strength isn't in what you have, but in what you can build after it's all been taken away. It's not about revenge, it's about renaissance." Matthew stared at the screen, the words echoing in the vast emptiness of his life. He had wanted fame. He had craved a legacy. In his ruthless pursuit, he had handed Bella the very story of resilience that the world fell in love with. He had made her an icon. In his desperate attempt to erase her, he had made her immortal, and in the process, had completely destroyed himself. So, what's the lesson in the story of Bella Hayes and Matthew Ryan? It's a powerful reminder that true value isn't found in stock prices, follower counts, or the blinding flash of a paparazzi camera. It's forged in the quiet moments of passion, in the resilience it takes to stand up after you've been knocked down, and in the courage to be authentically yourself. Matthew thought he could trade integrity for fame, but he learned that a reputation built on cruelty has a foundation of sand. Bella, left with nothing, discovered she had the one thing that truly mattered, herself. Her story is a testament to the fact that the world will eventually see you for who you are, and that the sweetest success isn't about revenge, but about building a life so full and beautiful that the past simply fades into insignificance. If Bella's journey from heartbreak to triumph inspired you, please don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next story of karmic justice and incredible resilience. Thank you for listening.